I always considered myself someone who stood firmly by her principles and values. My name is Emily, and although my life wasn't perfect, I tried to live by my own rules, respect others, and stay true to my ideals. My friends and family admired my stability and ability to find joy in simple things. But everything changed when I met James. It was in college. We were both studying in the humanities and sat in the same literature class. James caught my attention with his passion for books and his ability to discuss any topic with deep understanding. I remember seeing him for the first time. He was sitting in the back row with an attentive gaze and a slight smile. We started talking after class, and our conversations quickly became a daily joy for me. Our relationship developed slowly but surely. We spent 5 years together, and each day our bond grew stronger. We shared joys and challenges, supporting each other and finding happiness in every little thing. When James proposed, it felt like a dream come true. We decided it was time to take this important step and build our own family. The wedding preparations were a true celebration. We chose a beautiful location for the ceremony, a secluded coastal town that became a symbol of our new life. Together with our family and friends, we enjoyed every moment of the preparations. From choosing the dress to decorating the venue, everything was filled with love and joy. We dreamed of a future full of happiness and harmony. The day of our wedding arrived, and everything felt like a fairy tale. James looked stunning in his black suit, and I felt like a real princess in my white dress. We danced, laughed, and toasted to our future together. We were filled with hope and confidence that our path would be only joyful and bright. The wedding was truly a celebration. We chose a secluded coastal town for the ceremony, and it turned out to be the perfect choice. The place was surrounded by greenery with a stunning view of the blue sea. The decorations, white flowers, gold ribbons, and candles created an atmosphere of enchantment and romance. Guests arrived with excitement and joy. Our loved ones and friends surrounded us with warmth and support. The evening was filled with laughter, dancing, and toasts. We felt happy, and everything seemed perfect. However, as the night approached, James began to look exhausted. After all the partying, alcohol, and revelry, he was clearly worn out. We headed to our wedding suite with hopes that this evening would mark the beginning of our new life together. I was filled with anticipation, imagining how we would spend our first night together. But things did not go as I had imagined. Just before we were about to begin our evening, James received a phone call. He apologized and left the room, saying he would be back in a few minutes. I decided to take a shower to relax and prepare for our special moment. When I emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, I expected to see James returning, ready to continue our evening. Instead, I found him deeply asleep in bed. His face was relaxed and peaceful, but his deep slumber was clearly the result of exhaustion and alcohol. My heart sank with disappointment. All the expectations I had for this evening seemed to crumble. I felt alone and vulnerable. Our first night together, which I had so eagerly anticipated, turned into a letdown. My heart was filled with pain, and I didn't know how to handle these emotions. I went out into the hotel corridor and sat down in one of the chairs there. Surrounded by the dim light and silence, I began to cry softly. When I stepped into the hotel corridor and sat down in a chair, tears flowed freely. I felt empty and alone, despite the joy the wedding day had brought. Our first wedding night, which I had anticipated so much, turned out to be a broken dream. As I sat there, absorbed in my feelings, I noticed approaching footsteps. It was Robert, James's father. He saw my distressed state and approached me. "Emily, what happened?" he asked with a concerned expression. I looked at him through my tears and quietly said, It's just, everything isn't what I expected. I thought this night would be special, but now I feel so alone. Robert noticed that I clearly needed support and offered his help. If you need some comfort, I can offer it. My room is nearby. You can come over if you want to talk. I was too overwhelmed to refuse. I followed Robert to his room, hoping that talking with him would help me calm down and sort out my emotions. When we entered his room, Robert offered me a seat on the couch. He poured some wine and sat next to me. We started talking, and Robert turned out to be surprisingly attentive and understanding. His kindness and sincerity helped me relax a little. Gradually, the conversation became more intimate. Noticing that I was still shaking with emotion, Robert gently took my hands in his and squeezed them, trying to give me a sense of reassurance. His touch sparked an excitement I couldn't control. Our faces were very close to each other, and I felt an unexpected spark between us. Robert did not let go of my hands, and this closeness created a special tension. He leaned in toward me, and before I could react, his lips touched mine. The kiss was unexpected, but filled with passion and emotional intensity. I was stunned and couldn't pull away from the moment. My feelings were a mix of conflict, but also a thrill from the new experience. When I returned to my room, I was confused, but felt that this moment had become part of my new reality. In the end, my wedding night did not unfold as I had planned, not with James, but with Robert. This experience left a mark on me that I could not ignore and presented difficult questions about how I would move forward. The next day, James returned to the room with apologies. His face was exhausted, and his eyes were red from fatigue. He explained that he had fallen asleep because he was so tired after all the festivities, and said he was sincerely sorry for missing our first wedding night. "I'm sorry, Emily," he said, genuinely remorseful. "I didn't mean for it to end up like this. I was just so exhausted. I'm really sorry." I was touched by his apology, but the sense of resentment lingered. The dream of how my married life would begin had been shattered. Instead of the expected joy and intimacy, I found myself in loneliness and confusion. Meanwhile, my secret world had become unexpectedly complex. Robert and I started meeting secretly. Our encounters were full of emotions and intimacy, but I tried to keep my distance to avoid further consequences. Robert understood my caution as well, but once again, moments of closeness occurred between us that I could not ignore. James threw himself into work at the winery, spending more and more time there. This led to his detachment and lack of time for me, sowing doubts in my mind about our life together. While we lived apart, everything had seemed different. Now I felt that our future together was becoming increasingly uncertain. Meanwhile, the time spent with Robert brought me comfort and joy. We found moments to be together, and I often visited Robert's office when he was working at the winery, which he owned. In his office, our attraction became apparent, and moments of passion and closeness became our secret world. I cherished how he looked at me with deep respect and desire, how his touch was both tender and filled with longing. These moments were the only solace in the gap between what I had expected and the reality of my life. Each secret rendezvous in Robert's office left me with mixed emotions. I understood that it was wrong, but I couldn't stop. Every kiss, every touch was a reminder that I was still searching for something I couldn't find in my new life. One day, when Robert and I met in his office, our relationship was on the edge of entangled emotions and secret passions. We were absorbed in each other, and on that day, strangely enough, we forgot to close the blinds. In that intimate space, it seemed to us that no one could disturb us. We stood by the window, and I felt his tender touches, which filled me with excitement. Our lips met in a kiss full of passion and depth. At that moment, I was completely absorbed in my feelings and oblivious to the outside world. However, as I turned to look at Robert, I sensed someone watching us. To my shock, I saw Tom standing outside the window, staring at us. His eyes were wide with shock and disapproval. The moment seemed to stretch, but it was enough to hit me like a cold shower. Seconds turned into hours as I realized that our secret meetings might have been exposed. The realization that someone knew about our affair and seeing Tom in the moment of our kiss sharply brought me back to reality. I felt a rush of internal conflict. These thoughts sparked new fears and doubts. We had to decide how to handle this complex situation. The growing unease inside me made our secret meetings feel even more precarious. Tom might tell James or someone else, which could destroy everything we had built. I was torn between two choices: confessing to James and trying to fix the situation, or running away with Robert, which could also end badly. This internal tension made our affair even more torturous, because every day I feared our secret would be revealed. We continued to hide, but fear and uncertainty began to erode what we had. Our passion turned into fear, and every touch became a reminder that each moment could be our last. When I returned home, I felt as though the end was imminent. My apprehensions came true when James arrived. Having seen the video that Tom had recorded, the confrontation was inevitable. Tom, a worker at the winery, had captured on video the moment Robert and I were in his office, forgetting to close the blinds. The footage clearly showed us sharing a kiss, unaware of being watched. This video was the last straw for James. As I entered the house, I saw that James was already there. His eyes burned with fury, and his emotions erupted uncontrollably. He unleashed a storm of anger, shouting, breaking things, and destroying everything that symbolized our happiness. Our wedding photos, cherished vases, and other significant items were shattered. Every shout and crash felt like a knife to my heart, and I was powerless to stop the avalanche of pain. After James left, abandoning me alone in the house, I was left amidst the wreckage. The feeling of emptiness and betrayal was unbearable. Robert was not with me, as he lived separately, and his absence only deepened my sense of isolation. Our problems extended beyond the house. At the winery, Robert faced condemnation and disdain from his colleagues. News of his affair with me spread throughout the area, and he became the target of scorn among his staff. They whispered behind his back, threw sidelong glances, and some even openly expressed their disapproval. In their eyes, Robert was not only a traitor, but also someone who had placed personal desires above work and integrity. The situation led to both Robert and me facing social isolation and condemnation from the local community. The news of our betrayal spread quickly, and we became objects of public scorn. People avoided us, and I felt like a criminal, even though I was deeply distressed myself. Grief and guilt began to weigh heavily on us as we realized the devastating consequences of our actions. Robert and I tried to continue our relationship, but it began to dwindle under the burden of moral weight and public condemnation. After James left, I realized that I needed to leave the house, as it was his, and start a new life, ending my relationship with Robert and moving to a new city. I decided to part ways with Robert, understanding that our relationship no longer brought either joy or peace. We ended things amicably, though with deep regret. I knew that for my own healing, I had to move on. Relocating to a new city marked the beginning of my journey toward recovery. I explored new opportunities and tried out various professions. I worked as an assistant in an art gallery where I first discovered the world of art. Then I became an administrator for exhibitions, allowing me to immerse myself in culture and creativity. These jobs were not only sources of income, but also ways to find new meanings in life. Immersion in art became a source of inspiration and solace for me. I began to understand that self-discovery and creativity helped me cope with guilt and start the healing process. Every painting, every exhibit in the gallery gave me a chance to reflect on life and find new paths for personal growth. Over time, I started to feel my soul healing. I still carried the weight of the past, but it became less burdensome. I learned to forgive myself and build healthier relationships with the world around me. My heart gradually filled with hope, and I began to believe that new opportunities and happy moments awaited me in the future. With the new city came new opportunities for self-expression and growth. I began studying art education and therapy, and this brought me deep satisfaction. Art and therapy helped me confront my inner demons and find harmony within myself. Each lesson, each session was a step toward recovery and self-understanding. My days were filled with colors and brushes, as well as interactions with other creative individuals. I started keeping a journal where I described my feelings and experiences. This process became a part of my healing and allowed me to delve deeper into myself. One day, I received a message from Robert. His words were filled with regret and longing, but I chose not to respond. My path had already begun, and I knew that returning to the past would not bring me any good. I left behind messaging apps and social networks, opting instead to write by hand. In my new home, I began writing letters. One was addressed to James and the other to Robert. These letters were never sent, but they became symbols of my inner forgiveness and desire for change. I wrote about my feelings, what had happened, and how I wished to transform my life. It was a way to release the past and let go of the pain. Each letter was like a therapeutic session where I forgave myself and others. I read them, reread them, and with each reading, I felt the weight I carried becoming lighter. These letters stayed with me as a reminder that I should not forget my mistakes, but also not let them define my life. And so, step by step, I began to feel freer. I was returning home, but not to the old house and old mistakes. My new home was in my heart, where I sought the peace and understanding that had previously eluded me. And although the past never fully left me, I began to understand that I had the strength to move forward and build a new future. With the start of a new life in a new city, I faced many changes, and one of them was an unexpected encounter that altered my path. Michael, a literature professor at the local college, became a significant figure in my life. We met at one of the literary lectures I attended in search of something new and inspiring. Michael was charming and intelligent, with a deep understanding of literature and life. His engaging lectures and extensive knowledge quickly captured my attention. Over time, our friendship blossomed into something more. He was attentive and empathetic, and his support became a source of strength and hope for me. Our relationship developed based on mutual respect and honesty. We talked extensively about life, art, and literature, sharing our thoughts and feelings. Michael helped me discover new horizons and realize that happiness was possible even after the suffering I had endured. His support was immeasurably important during this period of healing and self-reflection. Michael not only inspired me with his knowledge, but also became a reliable friend and partner. We spent time together discussing books, walking through parks, and enjoying cozy evenings filled with heartfelt conversations. His understanding and patience helped me regain my confidence and readiness for a new life. I learned to believe in love again and hope for the best. Michael became a symbol of new beginnings and the possibilities that arise when we are willing to move forward and embrace change. With his help, I began to build a new future, full of light and hope, where happiness had a clear place. After a long journey of self-discovery and inner searching, I finally came to understand how my mistakes and their consequences shaped my life and the lives of those around me. Accepting my mistakes was not an easy process, but it was essential for my growth and healing. I learned to view my past not as a chain of failures, but as important lessons that helped me become stronger and wiser. My new life with Michael became a reflection of the values I embraced as the foundation for my new beginning: honesty, self-respect, and love. We built our relationship on mutual respect and understanding. Michael and I shared not only joys, but also challenges, which helped strengthen our bond and create a solid foundation for the future. Now, looking back on the path I have traveled, I see how far I have come. By accepting the lessons from my past, I was able to open myself to new horizons and opportunities. I face the future with hope and determination, ready for the new challenges that life may present. Each day, I feel my inner strength growing and my new life with Michael becoming a source of inspiration and joy. I have learned to cherish every moment and realize that true strength lies in the ability to accept and forgive both myself and others. With Michael, I find fulfillment in the simple pleasures of life and am confident that the best is yet to come. I am now ready to embrace the future with an open heart and a mind full of hope, knowing that each new day is an opportunity for growth, love, and new beginnings. After the devastating events related to the betrayal, James and Robert's lives were forever altered. Feeling a profound sense of disappointment and betrayal, James decided to sever all ties with Robert. Refusing any form of communication, he aimed to forget the past and build a new life free from reminders of old mistakes. With the accumulated funds he managed to save from selling part of his inheritance and assets from the winery, James invested in creating his own vineyard. This wasn't just a business project, but a realization of his dreams and ambitions. He meticulously planned every detail, from selecting the vineyards to crafting unique wine recipes. James immersed himself in his work, determined to prove that he could create something meaningful despite past failures. On the other hand, Robert faced significant challenges. His business, which had thrived thanks to James, began to rapidly decline. James had played a crucial role in managing and developing the winery, and without his involvement, running the business became significantly more difficult. Robert struggled with mounting debts and a lack of skilled staff, which made it hard for him to turn things around. Ultimately, Robert found himself in a situation where his business was no longer profitable and became a constant source of stress. Realizing that his former life was crumbling, Robert sought new opportunities for himself. He explored various options to start anew, understanding that it would require considerable time and effort. While his business and previous life lay in ruins, Robert looked for ways to reconcile with his mistakes and create a future free from the errors that had destroyed his relationship with James. For James, the new winery became not only a source of income, but also a symbol of his personal revival. He aimed for success and sought ways to keep his business thriving. His life gradually began to stabilize, and he found a new purpose. Although he no longer had a relationship with Robert, he found satisfaction and peace in the fact that he was able to create something of his own based on his principles and dreams. Thus, one chapter of their lives closed, and a new path began for both men. They went their separate ways, each striving to build their future anew, hoping that better times lay ahead.